Second, over different investment periods, one of the tools that Canon Asset Managers uses before looking at any firm, we run forensic audits on companies. The first question we ask is not what are the numbers, but are the numbers real? And so we run forensic audit tools. Our audit tool has a 97% success rate in identifying companies that have, let's call these erroneous numbers. Numbers that are simply wrong. This may be fraud, this may be miscalculation, it may be error, it could be very clever derivative structures, accounting manipulation, artistic application of accounting laws, and so on. But in the current environment, our forensic tool finds that we are dealing with a listed community that is in remarkably good shape, that we have good companies, well-behaved companies, well-managed, compliant companies populating the stock market right now. On top of these strong audit committees and great compliance and excellent forensic results, South African businesses have very strong balance sheets. And Praveen Gordon has made a lot of this already. I don't need to emphasize the point. 600 billion cash on balance sheet, 1.1 trillion in retained profit over the last 3 years, an average return on equity of 17%, and cash that makes up 20% of current market cap. South African companies are in good shape if we take the listed community as a proxy. But now I want to zoom out. And I want to remind you that the world is in a tough spot. We have QE3 announced 2 weeks ago by Ben Bernanke. Under QE3, the US Fed is going to buy back every month $40 billion of debt. What this means is that the US Fed, in effect, will buy every 2 months South Africa's entire household debt. Every 2 months. And somehow this is meant to be a solution to the world's credit crisis. Somehow more debt and the printing of money is supposed to solve the global financial crisis. I struggle to get these two parts to join after 20-odd years of economics. I think that what we should anticipate is that we've got 15 rounds with George Foreman. That we will move from use of the word double dip to describe recession to triple dip. Triple dip. That going into 2013, expect tough times for the advanced world. And looking at the advanced world is important. Sure, they are not doing most of the lifting in terms of contributing to economic growth, but the advanced world economies still represent 2/3 of world economic activity. 2/3 of the world's economy is in trouble. Unemployment is one way of recognizing the depth of their problem. Unemployment sits now at elevated levels and protracted levels. Most people have been unemployed for longer than a year, and in some economies, Greece, Spain, unemployment sits at 25% across the economy and 50% at youth level. So here you see some data for Greece and Spain, 45%, 46% youth unemployment respectively. These are tragic numbers, because what they contribute to, and South Africans need no introduction to this, is they contribute to structural unemployment crisis. That if you've been unemployed as a 22 or 23-year-old, your lifetime income is permanently lowered, and your chance of being unemployed later in life is permanently raised. This leaves the advanced world in a tough spot. Interestingly, it is an audit failure that took the advanced world into this plight. And the audit failure passed through Goldman Sachs, where Goldman Sachs, in conjunction with Greece, put together some very interesting national figures. We run our same forensic tools on Greece's macroeconomic data. And those forensic tools flag for us that Greece's macroeconomic data in 2006, 7, 8 was fabricated. The numbers were made up. So whilst Greece was able to show numbers that said we are good enough to get into the European mechanism, my years are wrong. Go 3 years before that, sorry. Whilst Greece is able to show numbers that are good enough to go into the European mechanism, the numbers are false. Garbage in, garbage out. There was lots of other fabrication going on. Think of liar's loans and ninja financing. Liar's loans say you just walk into the bank and you tell them what you earn, and ninja loans say no income, no job, no assets, but you can lend me money because house prices only go up. When we put these ingredients together, we recognize massive failure in regulation, in compliance, and in simple audit procedures. These are apparent zoom in, zoom out risks. Incidentally, if we conduct the same forensic test on 120 countries right now, 120 tests on 80 countries, we find 12 countries that currently have question marks over their macroeconomic data. 12 countries that are threatening to jump out the closet and say, these numbers may be subject to review. To me, that represents extraordinary risk. And it doesn't then just mean that the advanced world recession rolls on, but it means the advanced world recession is aggravated by ongoing numbers problems. What does this mean for South Africa? I think the most important implication for South Africa is that our biggest trading partners remain in the advanced world. Our biggest trading partners remain in the advanced world. And if the advanced world is in trouble, this will present headwinds for South Africa. I think of capital market stresses. I think of a lowering appetite for foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investment, which supports the bond market and the equity market. I think of lower resource prices, all else equal. I think of subdued tourist markets, and we think of rising nationalist or protectionist policies to look after economies, not just South Africa, economies more broadly that are in trouble. In other words, I anticipate ongoing difficult times, and I don't imagine that economic growth of 6% materializes anytime soon. What does this mean for socioeconomic welfare? Let's move it away from economic growth of 0%, 2%, or 6%. What does this mean for socioeconomic welfare? The first point that I'm obliged to flag is that even if South Africa is able to grow at 6% per annum, our economy is incapable of job creation because of structural problems. The two lines that you see here, the orange line is economic growth adjusted for inflation. The black line is job growth or job count. South Africa has not created a job since 1980. And this is despite the economy going from 100 odd index points to 300 odd index points. The economy is almost 2.5 times bigger in inflation-adjusted terms. Our job headcount is identical. When this economy grows, it does not create jobs. One of the explanations is that this economy doesn't create companies because of an extraordinarily onerous regulatory environment. It's tough to build small firms, and I speak here from very personal experience. I've been at it for 14 years, and I wouldn't describe any one of those 14 years as having been easy. But my headcount factor is up by 25. There are 25 of me in my company. And so I'd like to argue the very personal point that it is small companies and the creation and sustenance of small companies that creates jobs. In the absence of job creation and company creation, we run the risk of elevated populism in policies. You will note in that I haven't ventured into it being the task of governments to create jobs. Companies create jobs. Governments create the environment in which jobs and companies are created. So if we asked Ali to come and give us an audit review, how are we doing? If we would ask him to zoom in and zoom out, what are the risks and what are the strengths? I sat last night and pulled together what I thought are 4 obvious strengths and 4 key challenges. The strengths: we've managed to stay away from recession. We have exceptionally strong balance sheets, not just the private sector. South Africa's public sector has one of the strongest balance sheets globally. We have an exceptional neighborhood, a neighborhood that has the fastest growing economy over the last 10 years, Angola, not China. And we have ever increasing foreign interest in South Africa. But this same zoom in, zoom out recognizes some key risks. Unemployment and labor force participation. My estimate of unemployment in South Africa is 50%. We have a lingering, structural, deep-rooted education and skills crisis. The DG spoke about our competitive strength. I'd like to remind you of our competitive weakness. In that same World Economic Forum report that ranks South Africa first in the world for auditing and compliance, we are ranked 140th out of 144 for education quality. We are ranked 143 out of 144 for maths and science. The strongest asset on our balance sheet, let me reword that, the most important asset on our balance sheet is not us, it's our children. And we better be doing something, and something fast, to move them from 143 to 1. This, I think, is the greatest risk that this economy faces. Maybe not in 2012, maybe not in 2013, but the longer we let this persist, the greater we are, the greatest conductors of our own risk. If you don't have a country, you don't have a company. So here are 3 ideas that we can do to contribute to this risk mitigation. The first one is an initiative called the Equalizer. The Equalizer figures that for 13 billion rand, we can build schools, we can build libraries for every school in South Africa. We've got 24,000 schools in South Africa. 90% have no library. 90% of South African schools have no library. For 13 billion rand, which is the same that we spent on World Cup football stadiums, we can put an 80 square meter school, a library in every school, 3 books per learner. This is not a lot of money when you consider that we have 600 billion cash on balance sheet. A second initiative highlights the importance of zoom in, zoom out. This is put together by Peter Kratz and Patrick Mbanga. It's called Men on the Side of the Road. And what they do is they help men standing outside of Builders Warehouse. The advertising is not intentional. Men standing outside of Builders Warehouse, standing with those signs. They have put those men into databases, and they have removed information asymmetry. They have created greater information symmetry to help us know who these men are, what their skills are, how we can contact them, how we can pay them, and if something goes wrong with the job, that we have recourse. In the last 3 years, Men on the Side of the Road, started by 2 men, has created 300,000 man-days of work. 300,000 man-days of work. And the last zoom in, zoom out that I'll give you is the recognition that Larry Joe had. Larry Joe was in Douglas Prison. He was in Douglas Prison because he was a member of the 28s gang, one of the numbers gangs in the Western Cape. He handed himself in, recognizing that until such time as he had done his prison service, he couldn't move on with his life. So he hands himself in at the Douglas Prison, and he serves a sentence for the various crimes that he committed. The day that he was released from prison, he released his first album, recorded in prison, released in December of last year. A recognition that my past is not my future. My past is exactly that. It's my past. My future is what I do to change that future and to shape my destiny. And whether it's Ali, Equalizer, Men on the Side of the Road, Larry Joe, each of them, to me, illustrates the powerful importance of zoom in, zoom out in trying to figure the challenges of how we build a competitive company and a competitive country in difficult times. Thank you for your attention.